Thank you, viewers, for tuning in for this presentation on finding the best college for you. There are over 4,000 amazing colleges and universities in the United States alone, not taking into account the thousands of colleges across the globe that students can consider and apply to in the college search and application process. But we really hope that you take away from this presentation that, this process is about you. We want to make sure that you are finding the best college for you, the best fit college for you, because we know that you like to talk amongst your peers, family members and friends talk to each other. And while, a college may be the best fit for one student, it may not be the best fit for the other. And that's why we are so fortunate to have so many colleges and universities here in the US alone for students to consider. And we really want to make sure that, students in particular, you feel empowered to be able to make a college list of schools that you are really going to thrive in. And so we want to make sure that that is the focus of today's presentation and conversation, and that you feel ready to go when you're applying to schools, and that you have found a healthy list of colleges that are going to be a good fit for you. So just to get us started, the big question then is, how do you find your fit? How do you find that school that is going to be the best fit for you? And we want to look at this from the high level for just a second. So there's so many different components that go into whether a school is a good fit or the best fit for a student. But there's three kind of categories in terms of fit that I really like to emphasize with students in particular. And we're going to focus on two of the three of those areas. So we're looking at whether a school is, one, an academic fit, two, a social fit, and three, a financial fit. We're going to focus on the academic and social fit in today's presentation. I want to make sure that, on the financial side, that you take part in the financial aid presentations that are available to you, as those are going to be the most extensive in terms of the information on how to best pay for college, how to bring down the overall cost of college as well. So I want to make sure that that's going to be your focus for those different presentations. But for today, we're really going to talk about academic and social fit. And it's really important for students to realize that these three areas, academic, social, and financial fit, are really all weighted equally when trying to figure out whether they should apply to a school or not, and whether that's going to be where they're happy, where they're going to thrive, because they all impact each other, right? If a student is struggling academically, it's most likely going to impact not only their social life, of course, because they're probably going to be needing to focus more on their academics and not being able to have that healthy balance. But it impacts them financially often, whether that's through scholarships, whether that's through financial aid. If there was a merit-based scholarship, for example, you want to take that into account. Socially, if you are at a school that is just not the best fit, whether it's in terms of the overall culture of the school, the geographic setting, the size of the school, again, if you are not being your best you, it's going to impact you in the classroom as well. And financially is a given, right? If a school is requiring you to take out thousands beyond thousands of loans, it's probably going to cause some undue pressure on you and stress. And we don't want that when there are so many great opportunities for a student to go to school in a more, financially savvy way. So we want to make sure that you embrace that. And so taking that into account, I always want every student to find their dream school. And that's always the focus, right? You want to find your place. And oftentimes the word dream school comes up and students focus on dream school being entirely academic or entirely ranking based or name recognition based. But the fact is, your dream school is going to be an academic, social, and financial fit. And if we can help you figure out a healthy list of colleges that, all three of those fit the bill, then you're going to be in a really great place and you are going to find that best fit college for you. So when we're looking at building out a college list, students are often faced with that struggle of how many schools do I apply to? How do I know whether I have a strong college list or not? And they also don't know, how few is too few of schools to apply to and how many is too many. There's no great answer to that. I can tell you on our personal end at Scholar Trek, we advise that students apply to, at least 5 colleges, 7 to 10 probably being the healthiest amount of schools to apply to. But there are going to be situations where a student may only apply to 1 or 2 colleges, and there may be a situation where a student applies to 20. Every student is different and has different reasons for that. But the most important factor is whether you're applying to 5, 10, or 20 colleges, is that when you're looking at your college application list, that you have a mix of what we like to call reach schools, target schools, and likely schools. So reach schools are going to be schools that, when really focused academically, are going to be, colleges that we like to call highly rejective. So these are schools that have way more qualified applicants than they can take, based off of their incoming class size. So if a college, for example, has an acceptance rate of 40% or less, I would automatically put those into the reach category. So even if you have a perfect 4.0 GPA, you have fantastic test scores, you have a great resume of activities, for these highly rejective schools and those schools that fall into a reach category, there is no shoo-in whatsoever for those schools. And so you want to make sure that you're not applying to only reach schools. Reach schools are also appropriate for a student who, when you're looking at the kind of incoming class averages for that college or university, so right, what were their average or middle 50% GPAs, and test scores if they require them, so if looking at your academic performance in high school that you may fall towards the bottom of that 50 percentile or the bottom 25th percentile for that school, it's most likely going to be a reach school. It doesn't mean that you can't or shouldn't apply, but you definitely wouldn't want to put all your eggs in that basket, because there's not, statistically at least, as high of a chance of you receiving admission to that school looking strictly at academics. Then we want to make sure that students are applying to target schools. So kind of going back to that conversation here of, the average GPAs and middle 50% of GPAs, for, students of the incoming freshman class, or test scores for that school, you want to be able to, again, look at your academic performance. And if you feel like your test scores, and your GPA fall nicely in line, with those averages or middle 50%, that's going to be a good indication that that's a target school for you. There's no clear indicator that you wouldn't receive admission, but you're also not so far up, past their averages, that we would call it a likely school. Okay. So the majority of schools that a student should be applying to in their list should be target schools. Okay. Then we look at likely schools. So likely schools are those schools that, again, it is likely you'll receive admission. You may fall in the top 25th percentile, for, GPAs and test scores that they're looking at. You may be a good fit for their honors college or honors program if they have one, for example. You may be a strong contender for one of their strong academic merit-based scholarships. Again, taking that all into consideration, you want to make sure that you have at least 1 or 2 likely schools on your list. And the way that you can figure out whether you have a strong list of colleges or not, outside of just having some likely target and reach schools, is whether you're applying to 5, 10, or 20 schools. You need to ask yourself this question. If you only got into one of those schools, would you be happy? Would you be happy to go there? If the answer is no, that school should not be on your college application list. There are a tremendous amount of schools, as we mentioned, in the US alone, and there are a tremendous amount of fantastic schools that you can receive admission to, whether that falls into a reach, target, or likely category. So we want to make sure that you are only applying to schools that you could truly envision seeing yourself thriving on that college campus. So just kind of take that into consideration as we go into this conversation. We're going to start off looking at academic fit. And there's many different components as to whether a school would be considered an academic fit for you, but we're really going to boil it down to these 4 areas just for this presentation and this conversation. So the first is going to be academic majors. Does that college or university have that academic major or a pathway or other academic majors that align with your current interest? I know this may sound silly, but sometimes students, either know what they want to major in, at least tentatively, or a career path that they're considering. And you don't want to go to a college that right off the bat can't support you in those endeavors. Now, the majority of students do end up changing their academic major in college 1, 2, 3 times, sometimes more. But you want to start off on the right foot. You don't want to start off at a school that already can't support where your head currently is, because in an ideal world, you want to be able to stay at that school and embrace it and to be able to graduate from that institution and it being the best fit from the get-go. The other area is looking again at that middle 50% for a GPA. You want to know, does that school look at unweighted GPA? Do they look at weighted GPA in that conversation? And what is competitive them for admission? Because again, for you, this is a mixture of things. One, you want to figure out whether that school is following into your likely target or reach school categories. But you're also trying to figure out kind of where would you potentially fall within the current student body academically? Is this somewhere where you feel like you may not be challenged enough? Is this a school that you feel like could be almost too much of a challenge and you might be just kind of swallowed whole and not feel like it's a good fit for you in terms of the conversations you're having in the classrooms and the workload? You want to take that into consideration. And oftentimes that can be reflected when looking at those middle 50% for GPAs. Then there are test score requirements. And so this again is a little bit multifaceted. For those that are not familiar, colleges and universities primarily fall into one of three different test score requirements for their applications. They are either test score required, meaning to apply to that college and to be considered for admission, you absolutely have to submit SAT or ACT scores. They may be test optional, meaning it's just that, it's optional. Some students can choose to submit SAT or ACT scores. Other students may feel like their test scores are not a strong indication of their academic abilities. And so they have chosen to either not take the test at all or have chosen to just not submit those scores to that school for the admissions review process. And then there are going to be colleges and universities that are test blind. And what that means is whether a student took the test or not, whether they attempted to submit the scores or not to that college or university, that admissions office has made a concrete decision that they are going to review all applicants without test scores. They are not going to view them if they were submitted. It has, for them, there's no indication that that is going to be a good predictor of whether a student will be successful on their college campus or not. And so while this is important in terms of you figuring out which schools, again, you have a stronger chance of receiving admission to when reflecting on your personal test scores, whether that's taking the PSAT as just kind of a predictive as to what you might actually receive on the SAT, or whether you've decided to not take the test at all. But it's an important reflection for some colleges, the culture that's there, right? If you are a student who just does not thrive with test taking, as many students do not. Maybe you want to go to a college university that is test optional or test blind, because it can be an indicator that school might have, more classes that are embracing of a culture that a test score is not going to be the strong indicator of what your academic grade is for a class. Maybe they do more grading based off of classroom conversations, essays, class projects, right? So again, that can be something to take into consideration when considering academic fit. The fourth area is going to be academic rigor. I feel like so many students struggle in this area in terms of whether they should take the AP or not take the AP, whether they should take another dual enrollment class or not, to set themselves up for, competitive admission. And there's a lot of self-reflection that does need to go into that, right? Not every student is a Renaissance man or woman in the sense that, many students are not equally as strong in their humanities courses as they are their math and science courses, for example. And so you really want to be taking the courses that you need that extra academic challenge. If you are already challenged enough with your kind of standard college preparatory curriculum at your high school, perhaps you shouldn't take that AP class for that specific academic subject. But part of that too is then looking at what a college or university that you're interested in, what is it that they are looking for in their applicants? And you'll find the full gamut. You're going to find schools that do not require or don't often see an abundance of what we call rigor courses. You're going to see schools that say, well, there's not a minimum, but, the average student who was admitted to our last incoming freshman class had 7 APs, right? You need to know that so that, again, you can figure out whether that school, it's an additional factor to figure out whether it's a reach school or a target school or a likely school for you. But it's also, again, another point for self-reflection to figure out, if you were someone who chose not to take, rigor courses, or that just wasn't your strength, or it wasn't good for your mental health, perhaps going to a college or university that, often has students who have taken that many courses, maybe it's not a good fit for you. That's okay. We just want to make sure you're taking that into consideration. So shifting gears a little bit, we're still going to talk about academic fit, but we're really going to talk about some areas of social fit, and areas of self-reflection and deal breakers that students need to ask themselves when they're going through the college search process. And so there's different categories that we go through. And whenever I get the opportunity to work with students one-on-one, which is my absolute favorite, these are the conversations that I like to have right off the bat to really try to figure out who a student is and again, what are those deal breakers, and to make them feel comfortable to have deal breakers in general, because sometimes students are scared to say what their deal breakers are. But we want to make sure that students have that moment, right? We want you to have self-reflection. What makes you excited to wake up in the morning, right? What is it? Because we want to make sure that that school can help foster that. If it's being with your family, then maybe going halfway across the country is not going to be the best fit for you. Are you like one of my students who was a competitive swimmer? She decided she competitively swam all through high school, decided she didn't want to swim in college anymore. And so that wasn't the basis of her search in the college application process. However, when I asked her, what makes you excited to wake up in the morning, all she could talk about was swimming. The feeling of swimming, the camaraderie of her teammates, just everything about it. And that really led us down to a really important conversation about the different colleges she was looking at, and that, maybe she wasn't going to swim competitively, but she probably wanted to go to a school that still at least offered her the opportunity to swim maybe on an intramural team or a club team, because that's what makes her happy. And thank goodness she did, because she ended up off going to school and ended up actually swimming on the club team. And so for her, that was really important. Kind of on the academic side, how do you best learn? When we talk about your high school experience and you reflect on that, what is it that you enjoy about the classroom? Do you like more hands-on learning? Do you like conversation-based learning? Do you like the fact that you have a teacher who maybe is more available to you than others in terms of kind of after class hours helping you with, an area you're struggling with, or just being able to talk about your passions because you may absolutely love, biology, and you want to talk about everything biology, and they're just excited to be able to have those conversations off to the side with you as well. That is going to be reflected in your college experience, right? So you want to make sure, if those are the conversations that you love to have, you want to be at a college and university that supports that learning style of yours, because maybe the big lecture hall with several hundred students isn't going to be the best fit for you. But for some students, maybe that big lecture hall is the best fit. Maybe you realize through virtual learning, for example, that honestly, you do pretty well kind of just listening to a lecture, watching a PowerPoint, and then independently reading and studying up on the subject. So maybe that's a good fit for you. Again, that's why there's so many different colleges and universities. Talking about, what experiences are important to you. Do you like the idea of kind of just being on the college campus and absorbing everything about it, having everything come to you, being able to live on campus and being able to roll out of bed and 2 minutes later being in the dining hall or classes? Do you want to do research? Do you want to do undergraduate research? What does that look like? Do you want to do mentored undergraduate research? How many of those students get the opportunity to do so? When you talk to most colleges and universities, they're all going to be able to give you examples of research that undergraduates have done. But if this is something that's really important for you, perhaps you want to ask questions of, well, what percentage of students are doing research? How hard is it to actually get your hands on one of those opportunities? Again, setting yourself up for success and putting yourself, in a college, in a university that is going to allow you to partake in those opportunities that you were looking forward to. I talked about this earlier, but deal breakers really are important and they should be valued. Deal breakers can be more serious, some can be more silly, but they really are equally as important when looking at all these schools. So maybe you're the student who absolutely hates the cold weather. So the idea of going to school up north in the snow sounds miserable. That's okay. Don't do that to yourself. On the other hand, there's students who cannot stand the fact that there aren't seasons in the South. And so they want to be able to have the big falls. They want to have the big snowfall. They want all of it. So maybe getting out of the Southeast is going to be a good decision for them on that side, right? Maybe it's in terms of just, to deal breakers in general. That, you're super into fashion. And so you want to be able to partake in kind of the fashion industry and get that exposure. Well, maybe a rural school isn't going to be the best fit for you. Maybe more of an urban or a suburban school is going to be able to offer more of those opportunities for you. Because again, that's something that makes you happy. We want to make sure you're able to continue and pursue that in college. All those types of deal breakers are good for you. Deal breakers can also be as important and serious as dining opportunities. If you are a student who has celiac disease and cannot have gluten, for example, you want to make sure that that dining hall and those food facilities on that campus can properly handle your food accommodations. All of those things are important in the college search process. And then really kind of drilling down more into this, but how do you want to get involved in campus and how do you want to spend your free time? Are there clubs and organizations that you currently partake in high school that you want to make sure you continue? Are there things that you didn't get to get involved with, but you were hoping to? Find out, does that school offer that opportunity? Can you create a club on their campus? And what does that look like if there's something that you want to be able to bring to their community, which is an awesome thing as well? Are sports important? I think people default to thinking that everybody wants a big football school when that's far from the truth. There are students who, yes, they love Friday Night Lights. They want that experience, and that's great. There are schools for you. But many students, and I would almost be far-fetched to maybe even say the majority, that's not a priority for them. So, look beyond that. What is it that you're hoping that school culture kind of gets around? Are they the ones that get excited over a speaker series coming? Are they excited over, kind of all the companies that come to visit, right? What is it that gets you excited? We want to help you find that school. And then really looking at the environment that a school is in, especially kind of geography and size wise. So are you more comfortable in a rural setting, a suburban setting, an urban setting? Do you like the fact that there's concerts and museums that are just, a couple blocks away? Is that something you want to take advantage of? Or again, do you like that feel of being on a college campus and kind of everything is right there for you? Or maybe you want a healthy mixture. You don't want an urban environment, but you don't want to have to drive an entire hour to get to a mall. Those are perfectly normal things because again, you are living your life. This is not just you as a student, you are evolving and growing as a person. And we want to make sure that you're in an environment that you feel comfortable in and that you will thrive in. And all of those things are taken into consideration when we're finding the social fit along with the academic fit. So we can do so much research. We can talk about all these things, but how are some of the best ways to actually drill down on whether a school is an academic or social fit? For us at Scholar Trek, we really, really strive the importance of campus visits. And I kind of like to relate it to buying a car, right? So whether you're spending 25, 30, 40, 60 plus $1,000 on a car, you're probably not going to sign the dotted line to buy that car without having test driven it, or at least I hope not. And college is a bigger investment in a car, not only financially, but just in terms of the impact of your life. And so you want to make sure that if you're fortunate enough financially, that you can step foot on that college campus to really see if it is a good fit for you. Colleges, universities, I used to work for them. Marketing is great. They want to show you the best stuff about their school and as they should. And there's a lot of great stuff for all of them to gloat about. But it is really hard to capture the culture of a school without stepping foot on the campus. And so there's different ways to visit a campus. And one of the best things to kind of come out of the virtual era that we're in is that you can do both virtual opportunities to visit a campus, and you can actually do on campus, boots on the ground visits. And so whether it's doing virtual tours, online information sessions, following them on social media, there's so many different ways that you can dig a little bit deeper and to get connected with each college and university that you are considering applying to. Oftentimes virtually, not only can you speak with an admissions counselor, but you can also speak with a current student or sometimes a faculty member, which is a great thing to be able to take advantage of. Now, in terms of physically boots on the ground on campus visits, you really get the full gamut, whether it's looking to do a formal tour, which are often led by a current student, an in-person information session, open houses. So these are going to be kind of more grand and robust events where you may get to actually sit in on a class. You may get to speak with a professor, learning about the different offices and support systems on their campus, whether it's, their student disability office, for example, their writing center, tutoring center, getting a feel for what their research labs look like. Oftentimes these open house events allow you to see just a little bit more than a personal, campus tour. But there's also normally a lot more students who are visiting at the same time. So it may not be as personalized to you. There's often kind of the admitted student version of open houses as well, which is a great way in the spring of your senior year of high school to be able to go and partake in one of these large events. And not only get to, of course, learn more about the school that you are considering attending, but you also get to meet other students who might be attending that school as well, and just kind of developing those early friendships. Sometimes people end up finding their roommate of who they're going to room with on campus through those events. So it's a great way to just get connected. But all on-campus visits have, different components to them. So make sure you ask, could I eat lunch with a current student? Can I shadow a class? Some colleges are bringing back the experience to do an overnight visit. So you can spend 24 hours on that college campus, going to classes, spending the night in the residential halls with a current student, eating in the dining halls, all the things that, again, are really helpful for you figuring out whether you can see yourself at that school. Sometimes students go and do these campus visits and they fall in love with the school. Oftentimes students walk away going, it was okay. And then there are situations where a student walks away thinking it was going to be the school that they were absolutely in love with. And for whatever reason, sometimes there's a tangible reason. Sometimes it's just a feeling that it wasn't a good fit. I can tell you from my own college search process way back when, there was a school that I was confident in was my school. I knew that was where I was going to be applying. I really thought that I would receive admission. I went to go visit the campus, and there's just really no great way of explaining it, but it just didn't feel right, to the point that I ended up not even applying at all. And I think that's just so important for students to feel confident and comfortable enough in their own intrinsic feelings to know that sometimes there is something in your gut telling you this isn't a good fit. And that's okay to embrace that and accept that. So on top of virtual, visits and in-person visits, colleges want to get to know you. That's why they have these virtual booths for you to be able to partake in to help you through these different college panels. But they also like to come to you, whether that's through in-person college fairs, visiting your high school. So you may see that through your school's counseling office, that they have set up a visit to be able to meet with students, whether that's in the lunchroom, whether that's in the counseling office, or maybe in your library or media center for a 30-minute or an hour visit. And they really are there to help you learn more about their school, to help you figure out whether it's a good fit or not, right? Because it's a two-way street. While colleges want you to find the best fit, they too are trying to find students that they feel are going to be a great fit for their community. So make sure you delve into those conversations and those opportunities. I know it can be tough to give up class time, but these opportunities really are important for you to be able to drill down on which school you are going to be happy at and thrive in. So it is worth the sacrifice if you can take that time to step out of the classroom or to take a few minutes away from eating lunch to go speak with one of these representatives. And so a little insider tip for all of you is, especially for students who are looking to apply to colleges and universities that maybe aren't in their immediate geographic area. Maybe they're more than a 2-3 hour drive away. And you're trying to figure out whether, a school is going to be a good fit, whether it's based on size, again, whether it's kind of, rural, suburban, urban, so many different things, is you can actually visit prototype schools, as I like to call them. So, maybe you are considering an urban school that is a 4-hour flight away or a 7-hour drive. But you don't have the money or the time to be able to do that visit, at least at this point in time. Visit the nearest urban campus to you. Go on a campus tour. How does it feel? Do you still like the idea of an urban campus? Or did you walk away going, it felt a little disjointed. I didn't like that there wasn't really like a central campus where everything was happening. That's going to help steer you in the right direction. Maybe there's a school that you have been researching and you've really fallen in love with it, but you're a little nervous because it truly is in a rural town. There's a little small college town attached, which are sometimes just the absolute best. But it is a very different environment than you're used to. Go visit a rural school that's within a few-hour drive of you and see how that feels, right? Maybe you walk away going, you know what? There's actually a lot happening on the college campus. So the fact that there's, not a big town or a big suburb that it's in, I actually feel okay with that. That is your way of being able to see it. Maybe you're looking at a, school that is an all-woman school, right? Or an all-male school, but you're not sure how that feels. Being able to visit any of those campuses, it might pleasantly surprise you that you feel like you'd be really comfortable in that environment. And HBCU, right? Maybe you're looking at HBCU that's further away, but you have some that are closer to you. One, you might fall in love with that HBCU that is closer to you. So that's always a win. But also just, is that something that you can see yourself? Is that an environment that you see yourself thriving in? We want to be able to help you do these types of visits without it costing an arm and a leg, as it is definitely a financial sacrifice for so many families to be able to put money aside to be able to go and visit different college campuses. And so when you do these campus visits, whether it's prototypes or the actual school itself, make sure that you're reflecting on all of this information and writing it down. And I know that sounds so cliche, but if it means taking out your smartphone and in your notes section or even texting it to yourself, something to make sure that you don't forget the feelings that you had. What did you like? What didn't you like? And truly being honest about it. And again, some more serious topics, some may be more silly, but the more schools that you visit, the more admission counselors that you start to talk to, the more virtual booths that you visit within Basecamp, you're going to hear things that you like or don't like or want to research more, but everything's going to start to kind of blend together. So the more notes that you can take that are associated to a specific school is only going to help you later on when you do decide what are those schools that I am going to actually submit an application for, or which schools do I want to go online and actually do a virtual information session or a virtual tour. This is going to help point you in that right direction. And last and not least, for all of you, this is just, my words of wisdom here. We talked about it in the beginning of this presentation, but this is your journey. You cannot compare it to your friends, your family, your peers. You need to figure out what is important to you. What academic setting you're going to thrive in, what social setting is going to be, where you flourish, and financially, what is going to be a good fit. And cheer on your friends, right? You may find your fit. Maybe somebody else is still trying to figure out, where they want to go and what school is going to be a good fit. Pass this words of wisdom on to them, help them figure out that this is not a race. This is not a game. This is truly about you in the next chapter of your life. It's an exciting chapter. Some students are going to start off right out of 4-year school. Some are going to start off in a 2-year program, whether that's financially it's the right fit or academically it's the right fit. Some students may decide to enlist in the military or to go right into the workforce. We want to make sure that you feel empowered to find the best path for you and to embrace that and to also support those around you as they're figuring out what path is best for them. So keep that in mind. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you guys, kind of take hold of all the other wonderful opportunities within Basecamp and embrace all the opportunities and excitement that come with the college search and application process. At ScholarTrek, if there's anything that we can ever do for you, please do not hesitate to get in contact with us. But we hope you explore the rest of Basecamp and have a great time in the college search process.